Hey, Talking Cars fans, we really love making Talking Cars each week, but we want to make sure you enjoy it as much as we do. That's why we've created a survey to find out what you like best about the show, what you want more of, and what we can improve on. Go to cr.org/talkingcarssurvey and let us know how we can make the podcast better. We really want to be your favorite automotive podcast, and your responses can help make that happen. Thank you for your help and enjoy the show.
On this episode, we talk about why fender benders are getting more expensive to repair. We debate whether or not a Miata is a good daily driver, and we give tips on buying a used car sight unseen. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, and welcome back. I'm Mike Quincy.
I'm Mike Monticello.
And I'm Ryan Pizlakowski.
So we're always asking for your questions, video questions, text questions at talkingcars@icloud.com. We've got a massive backlog to get through, so we're going to hop right into it. We got a whole bunch of video questions. So let's start out. This is Justin from Switzerland.
Hi, Talking Cars. So I've never purchased a car in my life, so I'm really looking for some tips, some advice. I am looking for something all-wheel drive. Something that's very reliable, and I'd like to have something kind of stylish if possible. My budget, I like to stay under 40K if possible, and I don't want to buy anything brand new, but would like to stay between the model years of 2017 and 2019. When I was driving, I used to drive an 02 Ford Explorer, so I was used to sitting up high. I love that, but I don't necessarily need to do that. So looking forward to hearing back. Enjoy the view here in Switzerland and across the lake in France.
So never bought a car before, looking for all-wheel drive, nice scenery out there in Switzerland. Good gig if you can get it. So Ryan, what advice do you have for Justin?
Well, he said super or very reliable he wants. I kind of focused on that. So naturally I started looking towards a Toyota or a Lexus. And this kind of took me by surprise. I kind of forgot about this car, the Lexus NX. It's a small SUV. Uh-huh. He also said stylish, and that's kind of a stylish car. Other than that, I would say maybe an Audi Q5. 40,000 is a lot for a used car, which is great.
I thought that was a nice, generous amount of money he can spend on that.
Yeah, right. So those are two to look at. I mean, I don't know if he's looking for an SUV. I mean, he had that.
Seemed like he was Ford because Explorer. He mentioned Explorer. Right. Probably likes that sort of commanding view that the SUVs give. So
right.
I kind of focused on SUVs as well.
Right.
And so my pick for Justin was a 2019 Mazda CX-5. 2019 because that's when they had the optional turbo 4-cylinder engine with 227 horsepower. The CX-5 is a great SUV without that engine, but when you have that turbo 4-cylinder in there, it just really transforms it. Now suddenly it's got a whole bunch of fun turbo power. CX-5 has a great interior, and so you have to opt for the Grand Touring or the Signature trim, but both of those come in brand new at under $40,000.
Well,
so if you get a used 2019, you're gonna be well under.
I think
well
you said 17,
budget.
18, but yeah, why wouldn't you? Right, you can go newer for that kind of money.
With a $40,000 budget, you can get a really nice new car.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And very reliable.
I stuck with the program. I went with a 2016 or a newer Lexus RX. You mentioned Lexus before, Toyota, really reliable, kind of stylish, very comfortable, all-wheel drive. Really a pretty nice car and pretty popular. Yeah. But thinking about when he said, really haven't bought a car before, do we have some kind of general buying advice for him?
I mean, I'm not sure if he's going to buy it when he gets here. I hope so, because buying a used car sight unseen is pretty
risky.
Radical, I'll say. I mean, you want to check this thing out, drive it, take a good look at it. And if you've never driven that type of car, you don't know if you even like it. I mean, you might like even the two cars I said, they drive quite differently. But that's your preference when you're spending that kind of money means something.
Right. So what can you tell Justin about just buying, as his first car he's bought?
Yeah. So I mean, the nice thing is these days you can do all of your shopping online. And you can do the bulk of even the buying, and negotiating, price negotiating process, via email, text, phone call. So you don't have to go to the dealer if you don't want to, early on in the game. But what I would say though is once you've kind of gotten to where you've agreed on a price, at least a tentative price for this vehicle, whether it's new or used, have the salesperson email you the purchase order, because there might be some fees in there that, especially for Justin, who hasn't ever bought a car before, there might be some fees in there, some dealer fees that maybe he wasn't counting on that is going to, now be tacked on to the overall total vehicle price, total sale price of this vehicle. So have them send you that purchase order so you can look at all the little, potential dealer fees.
Well, right. And some of those things that they might sneak in, certainly being a used car, would be, extended warranty.
Exactly. Or
$500
or
whatever.
A service warranty,
Right.
a way to get you to bring your car there to have all the oil changes done. So, and we've typically suggest don't buy those, either the service warranty, because if sometimes you added up, the service warranty costs more if you, rather than if you just went yourself, did it on your own. And the extended warranties, we usually don't recommend buying those because they rarely work out in the favor cost-wise of the buyer.
And if he does buy a super reliable car,
like a Toyota,
you shouldn't have this issue, right? Yeah.
And so you have to be careful on the purchase order, because sometimes it's pre-printed.
Right.
If a salesperson handwrites it, then it's one thing, but it's pre-printed, and if you haven't bought a car before, you might think, I have to buy this.
Right.
Yeah.
And my only general buying advice, Justin, is don't fall in love. In other words,
No, that's
it's like
very
you
good.
see one car, like, I have to have it, and the
Look
salesperson
around.
knows that you are head over heels for this car. They're going to get you.
Like,
into
they
that
kind of
car.
like, don't be afraid to just walk away, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great question. And also, love your vacation, or maybe it's your work spot. But anyway, Switzerland's lovely this time of year. Moving on to the next, this is Dr. Dave in Cleveland.
Hi, Talking Cars. I love the show. I had a question about TPMS. We live here in the suburbs of Cleveland and have decent winters, and we switch out to winter cars on 5 different cars. And one annoying thing is having to reset and pay for the reset for the TPMS. I've gone to all-weather tires to try to avoid this on a few of the cars. And also my Audi, I have an A5 convertible, doesn't need it because it uses the rotation of the hub instead of sensors in the wheels. So my question is, are manufacturers moving towards more sensors in wheels and center modules? Are they moving more towards, like Audi has always done, using the hub rotation to detect differences in spin as to whether a tire has gone low rather than the absolute pressure? Thanks.
All right, so tire pressure monitor sensing systems at TPMS.
Yeah.
That's really what he's talking about, swapping over from summer tires or all season to winter tires.
Right.
Must be a pain.
Yeah, I can appreciate this though. He seems like an enthusiast. He's got all weathers on some cars. He's swapping from winters,
And he's got them
all
wrapped
season. He's got them all
up. They got
wrapped
the
in
tires
there,
wrapped up on shelves
Yeah, he
behind
knows
him in
a
his
lot about
garage.
this.
That's awesome.
Hardcore doctor.
This
guy.
guy's
Good job.
He
He's
knows a lot about
serious.
this is good. But to answer his question first, though, we haven't seen a real trend of manufacturers going to the indirect system, which is measuring off the wheel speed or the hub speed, as he says. We haven't seen a real trend. There's some manufacturers do that, like Audi's been doing that for a long time. A few have started to do that, but there's still a lot that use the actual sensor in the wheel, like GM per se. So we actually like the direct system, which has the sensors in the wheels, because it'll display the actual pressure. And some vehicles will actually display the pressure of the
You
tire.
mean where you can look on your dash
Right.
and it'll show the individual tire pressure for each tire, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Right.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So some, and many do, some don't, even if they have that direct system with the sensor in the wheel. But we also, especially myself, coming from the land of actually changing tires, we like the indirect system because you don't have to worry about the sensors being in the wheels, breaking them. They can be expensive. Over time, the batteries can die in these. It takes a long time, but it becomes a maintenance issue.
Right.
And then, like he said, switching from winter tires back and forth, it gets expensive if you're going to actually have keep the sensors in there.
But so there's no real workaround for it.
It's tough. Yeah. We haven't seen a trend. I don't know if it will. Going into the future, vehicles are they're getting more and more complicated. And they're talking about the potential for smart tires and cars that are going to drive themselves. So there's the sensor in the wheel now can maybe get there could be the opportunity for other data and information to come through that sensor, where the indirect system is a little more primitive in the sense that it's just going off of wheel speed. So it's which way is it going to go? We don't know. But,
the idea of having a monitor on your instrument panel to say, your one of your tires is getting low. It's actually a good thing.
Right.
I mean, it's helpful to consumers.
And it's helpful to understand, at different times of the year, your tire pressures do change. It's helpful to know if one is way down or if it's only just a couple PSI down off of the others.
Right.
And,
So in the indirect system has gotten better in the sense that now when you inflate your tires to the proper pressure and you have an indirect system where it's going off the wheel speed, you actually calibrate the vehicle to that pressure, so it knows the actual speed. So what could happen is over time, all your tires can lose air at once, right? But it never sees just one, so it never thinks that you have a low tire. Some of the old systems were like that. It would take it'd take more air loss for that to happen, for you to recognize, or for the car to recognize it. Right. But now, you can go down a couple psi in one, and it will recognize it because it knew its original wheel speed. So ultimately, we don't know which way it will go. It might not go away. It might just be, some people use an indirect, some use a direct system. But unfortunately for Dr. Dave, he's going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Good thing we have Ryan here to answer tire questions. Excellent question.
The trials and tribulations of owning a lot of cars.
Right. Oh, boy. Next up is Paul from Walla Walla, Washington.
Hi, Talking Cars. Had a question about a 2019 Mazda Miata. I was thinking about replacing my Subaru Crosstrek or adding Miata in addition to my Crosstrek, and wonder what you thought of if the Miata is a reasonable car as a daily driver or if it really is more of a second car. Appreciate what you think. Thanks.
So we can't get through Talking Cars without talking about a Miata because we love it so much. So Miata is a daily driver. What do you think?
Well, so we looked up where Walla Walla, Washington was, and they do get some snow there. So the first thing is you've got to take that into mind. Even with winter tires, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. You're the tire expert here, but the Miata's still not going to be a great snow car. It doesn't have great ground clearance for getting through any kind of deep snow. So from that perspective alone, but then just as a daily driver, this is a car that has a very tight cabin. There's not a lot of space to store anything once you're inside the car. If you ever bring like a big guy like you as a passenger, or if he's a larger guy, you're going to feel cramped in there a lot. Plus, it's has a fair amount of tire noise, a fair amount of wind and engine noise. This is the kind of car that can wear on you over time.
It's busy. Yeah.
That said, if you have a really fun drive to work, then maybe it could be worth it, right? But it sounds like maybe the best situation is keep the Subaru Crosstrek, as your daily driver, and then use the Miata on the weekends or the occasional, I really want to have a fun drive into work today, so I'm going to do it. That way you don't, get bored of the car, not bored, but get tired of having to deal with this, kind of small little car that you're driving. Super fun.
Right.
That said, I'd also say, if you're looking at a 2019 Miata, you also might look at the Toyota 86 or Subaru BRZ. All three of those cars are very reliable and relatively inexpensive and super fun to drive. I personally think the 86 and the BRZ are more fun to drive than the Miata.
And roomier.
But you can't put the top down.
So you can't put the top down, but you've got, the Miata has the better shifter, but otherwise you've got better steering, better handling. It's really pinpoint in the 86 and the BRZ. So that my choice would be actually, take a look at those as well.
Yeah.
A nice problem to have. Yeah. Anyway, next up is Steve from Michigan.
Hi. I really like the new 2020 Toyota Corolla Hybrid. Comparing it to a standard Model LE, you're looking at about a $3,000 price premium. Given the miles per gallon advantage, I feel you can make that up fairly quickly. But what about long-term maintenance costs? Could the hybrid model potentially have more expensive repair bills later down the road? Thanks.
So looking at the Corolla versus the Corolla Hybrid, you're absolutely right. It's about a $3,000 price premium to go with the hybrid model. Both did very well in Consumer Reports testing. Both returned phenomenal fuel economy. But when you think about the national average for a price a gallon of gasoline, it would take between like 8 and 9 years to kind of make up the price difference with the regular Corolla versus the Corolla Hybrid, and factoring about 12,000 miles driving a year. I would say this isn't necessarily about saving money as much as it's about saving gas. Right. In other words, I want to be a green car person, and I want to burn less fuel. You burn less fuel with a hybrid model compared to a non-hybrid model. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at this.
Yeah, the hybrid versus non-hybrid price difference and when you make that amount up in terms of years has been a problem for a while. I mean, it's until you can buy a hybrid for almost the same price as the non-hybrid, it's going to be difficult.
Especially with the regular model doing very well.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the regular Corolla is a Consumer Reports top pick, and as far as reliability goes, It's actually one of the great success stories for our own automotive reliability data is the Toyota Prius, which has the battery packs and the electric motors, has an enviable reliability record going back almost 20 years.
Incredible.
I mean, we have so much data on this. It's not an uncomplicated car.
Right.
So in terms of the second part of Steve's question about reliability, that would be the least of my concerns. Buying a Toyota hybrid and thinking it's going to cost more money down the road because we don't see.
We're not seeing it.
We don't have the data.
The other thing that we've been seeing is that in some models, such as the Toyota RAV4, we've actually found, and also the Ford Escape hybrid, we've found that the hybridization of those cars. Actually, the hybrid version, having some electric assist actually made it a better driving vehicle.
It improved drivability.
Yeah.
So you might, in those two cases, the Toyota RAV4 hybrid and Ford Escape hybrid, we'd actually suggest buying them, even though it costs a little bit more money, because you're getting a nicer driving car than the regular version, and you're saving gas.
Right. Yeah. That's an excellent point. So our next question is from Nelson from Cary, North Carolina. Normally, Consumer Reports recommends not to buy a new car the first year it's produced. Will this logic apply to the Honda CR-V hybrid expected in the U.S. this year? It's already available overseas and will be based on the existing Honda Accord hybrid. However, it will be built for the first time at a plant in Indiana. Would these circumstances require waiting a year or no? So, Mike, what do you have for Nelson?
Well, so Nelson's correct that it absolutely is based on the existing Accord hybrid powertrain. So that's a good thing. But we don't normally take into account when we're doing our new car predicted reliability where the car is built. That's not something we factor into. We're more concerned about the brand as overall and the specific model, its history of reliability. So in this case, what Nelson can do is just simply look at the reliability of the Accord and the Accord hybrid and the existing CR-V, and then you can kind of look at determine from those two cars, okay, well, because there's not a whole lot actually brand new on the CR-V hybrid, it's probably going to have very similar reliability. And in this case, it means about average reliability is just, that's not what we've gone out and said yet for our new car predictor reliability for it. But it's a good bet since the Accord has been both the Accord and the CR-V. The CR-V was redesigned in 2017. The Accord was redesigned in 2018. Both those cars, since their redesigns, have been hovering right around average reliability, a little up and down.
So it's kind of low for Honda. I mean, you always think historically Honda is always at the top of the ranks.
So it's good, but not great. Right. And that's probably about where the CR-V hybrid is going to be as well. So, waiting a year in this case might actually be a good idea, just to see if there are a few new car bugs transitioning that drivetrain into the CR-V. Right. But it's going to remain about average reliability anyway, because that's what we're seeing with these other two models.
I mean, so some manufacturers are worth the risk more than others.
Right.
But okay, well, we'll have to see how that one pans out. Next up is Angelo from New Jersey. My wife recently bumped her 2018 Ford Explorer XLT into a tree stump and did some damage to the bumper. It didn't look like much, but the repairs cost $4,900. Given the complexity of modern cars, do engineers factor in the cost of repair when designing new vehicles? You'd think that insurance companies would be outraged at these costs for seemingly minor incidences. Well, it's a great question, and it brings up what we've been seeing in terms of automotive technology. I mean, sometimes you have one step up and you have one step back. Right. So these safety features certainly are doing their jobs. I mean, Consumer Reports is saying, the advanced driver assist systems, or as they always are saying, ADAS. You hear ADAS this and ADAS that. That's what it stands for. They're making cars safer. But what is without a doubt is because of these repairs, because they're so complex, you're not just repairing a bumper. You have to replace a sensor. You have to get the windshield glass recalibrated, for goodness sakes. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. It is not as simple and as inexpensive as it used to be. But the bottom line is that if you're seeing fewer accidents because of this technology, we'll save in repairs in the future.
Exactly.
Priority in a vehicle nowadays is probably safety, right?
Right.
So
the main thing
kind of makes sense.
The first thing is to not get in the crash.
Yes.
The second thing is you'd like it to not be that expensive to repair if you do get in a crash, but you're going to solve all of that by simply not getting in the crash. Right. So
check out the story, Repair the Hidden Costs of Safety Features on consumerreports.org. Next up is David from Boston. My family, which includes 3 teenagers, is looking to upgrade from our Honda Pilot to a 3-row hybrid or electric luxury SUV, and we've shortlisted the 2020 Volvo XC90 plug-in hybrid and the Tesla Model X. What would you recommend? So, Ryan, take a pick.
Oh, man. So if I'm going to pick between the two of these, I'm going to pick the Volvo. I mean, the Tesla is, you got to charge this thing. If you're going to go on long trips, you got to factor all those things in. I think you're just better off with the Volvo for that type of a vehicle. If you were going to buy a little car to commute back and forth to work, the electric might make sense if you had a set range every day. But this is more of an exploring vehicle if you're going to take your family to go places.
Well, right, yeah. David doesn't specify, how they're going to be using it. Just they have 3.
So
right.
yeah,
but I would honestly I would look at some other stuff like a Lexus RX hybrid,
right?
Personally,
right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting because the 2 vehicles chosen here are both have much worse than average predicted reliability. Yeah. So you're going to have to factor that in from the get-go. But I'm with Ryan. I mean, the Model X, it has the fancy, showy gull-wing doors for the rear side doors, which, it gets a lot of wow factor when you go to a restaurant or whatever.
It's a pain.
But it is kind of a pain. And there's, like I said, there's been some reliability issues with that thing.
A lot of reliability issues with the Model X.
I'm with you on the charging, that if you're going to be taking a family on a long trip, you probably don't want to have to be charging, even though, the Model X can go, and depending on the model, can go over 300 miles, which is a pretty long range. But you might not want to deal with it. But both cars have some issues. They both have a little bit of stiffish ride. The Volvo has some controls that a lot of people here aren't big fans of. That said, it has a very beautiful interior, has a pretty nice drivetrain. But again, with the Volvo, it's a plug-in hybrid, but it only has about 14 miles of electric-only, range. So it's, again, you're not getting a lot out of that, but you never have to worry about being on a trip and then having to go charge up somewhere and wait around for 30 to 45 minutes.
So when you started giving your pick, you immediately went to the lack of reliability in the Volvo and the Tesla. And that's exactly what I wrote in my notes. I started laughing. So I thought, well, since reliability doesn't seem to be much of a factor here, I'm saying go with the Chrysler Pacific Hybrid, because you've got the plug-in, you've got the hybrid, you've got the green kind of bent to this whole thing. Yeah. But then we talk about 3 teenagers, and I have 2 full-size boys in my house.
That's a true dad pick right there, the minivan.
Well, hello, I'm a dad. So that's what I was going with. I mean, it's the most fuel-efficient minivan currently on the market. You get a certain amount of electric-only miles as you're plugging in.
It drives well.
It does drive really nice.
Right. I will say though, like these, they're all third row. They're small third rows. For a teenager, I mean, that's tight. The minivan, I mean, I don't know if it fits into his luxury
well, listen, the
category, the Pacifica pretty nicely trimmed out.
The rear seat of the Pacifica, I can sit back there.
It's reasonable.
It's
you could put teenagers back there if you needed to.
But
it's got a stigma.
But Ryan was the only one that went the reliability route, so you got to give him credit for that.
But even the RX, the third row in the RX is tight.
Right.
But, I think you'll have less issues with that.
I say move beyond the minivan stigma and just enjoy the practicality of it. And
we're going to get made fun of for that one.
Yeah, but Quince picked it first. I just piled on.
We get made fun of anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Great question. So next up is Chris from California. I can't seem to find good guidelines on what tires are best for the San Francisco Bay Area, with temperatures in the 30s and 40s on winter mornings and up to the 90s in the summer. Do the cold mornings rule out summer tires? Would all seasons or all weather tires do the trick here? Well, Chris, it just so happens that Ryan knows something about tires.
Yeah.
So tires in San Francisco.
Right. Great question. Easy answer. Regular all-season tires are going to be the best bet here. It rarely snows there. And even more rarely does it stick to the ground. So a winter tire, out of the question. A summer tire, out of the question also, because those cold temperatures, obviously you don't really want to be on a summer tire under 50 degrees, 40 degrees is starting to push it. But a summer tire is more performance oriented. They don't last as long. They're more expensive, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to go that route. An all weather tire is a glorified all season tire in the sense that it has better snow traction, but that's not an issue here. Temperature wise though, an all season tire, I mean, I've done actual testing in sub-zero temperatures, and on clear roads, they still perform better than even a winter tire in terms of grip. But, the winter tire is really for on snow performance. So here, easy all-season tire. Check our ratings, and we'll give you the best recommendation.
I mean, it's sort of a funky dilemma because in San Francisco, it could be bright, sunny, and then the fog comes in and the temperature drops.
It's an odd city from that perspective, but actually that's kind of one of the reasons why I always enjoyed going there to visit was because you didn't know what the weather was going to be.
Right.
And it wasn't typically as hot as much of the rest of, especially Southern California.
Right.
So I kind of always enjoyed that about it.
But even the all-season tires, if it did snow, he's fine. Like you modest snow traction, you'll get by, but it's just not worth having those. Or the summer tires are just out of the question.
Yeah, it's more of an issue if they were going to be driving in icy conditions or deeper snow conditions, right?
Great, excellent. Next up, actually, this is the last one we got. We've got two questions that are pretty similar. The first is Amar writes, I want to surprise my retired parents with a car and looking for some recommendations. It's hard for my dad to get in and out of anything too low, but also something good for my 5-foot-tall mother to be comfortable behind the wheel. And Bart adds, my 76-year-old mom loves her 2006 Kia Sedona, but it's so tall that it's getting tough for her to get in and out of these days. Any recommendations on something lower to the ground? Thanks. And the two mics are awesome. We love you, Bart. It's the best question we've had the whole episode. Anyhow, so recommendations for kind of older, aging parents.
We get in and out of all these vehicles, so we have a pretty good idea. The Kia Soul is...
That was my pick.
I
have other choices. I have other choices.
So I'll start with that, but that's only for two-wheel drive, front-wheel drive. If you want an all-wheel drive, that rules that out, but... Right. You could put snow tires on it if you're in a place where you're worried about snow traction. Or the obvious one is the Subaru Forester. Right? It's all-wheel drive. It's easy to get into. It's a good car.
All right. So since Ryan's stolen our thunder because Bart likes the mics, you're going to have to help us out here.
Well, so we're still dealing with Amar though, right? This is so
Amar and Bart.
Well, okay. So for Amar, I would say I think that your choices are excellent. But if you were thinking more along a luxury vehicle, you might look at the BMW X3, which is, again, very easy to get in and out of, and just is going to drive a little nicer. And if you, were thinking something a little larger, maybe like a mid-sized SUV, then maybe, go with Jen Stockberger's always go-to choice, the Kia Sorento. Again, very easy to get in and out of, and lots of room. So now if you want to move on to Bart, that's an interesting question because if you look at our road test of the 2006 Kia Sedona, we actually say that it's pretty easy to get in and out of. So because we don't know how tall she is, I'm going to assume that maybe she's a little shorter. What I would say is actually go with something like the Toyota Avalon, which we have said in the road test is a little hard to get in and out of because it's low.
Yeah.
But if she's a shorter person, it's actually not going to seem that much lower. It would be different for different between you and me getting into a car.
Right.
You're a much taller guy. It's going to be harder for you to get into a low car. If she's a little on the smaller side, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And the Avalon is a great. It's a great car for an older person. Has such a smooth ride, roomy interior. Logical controls. There's just a lot to like about that car, and I think she'd be pretty happy with that thing. And I just went. We have one in the, out in our test fleet right now. I rented one actually, and I just got in and out of it, and it's not that bad to get out of. And I thought, okay, if someone was even smaller than me, it really wouldn't be a big deal.
Hard to believe, but
in terms of sedans, it's actually a little higher.
Usually we leave those jokes for John Linko.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding. The mics are still awesome. Because we talked about this question, and it's always like the car for kind of elderly parents that are losing some of their mobility. We always go to the Subaru Forester, and I just kind of assumed that both you guys were going to be going off about the Forester because it's always among the best car for older drivers.
Right, can I just explain the reason why, in case people don't know, is because when you open the door and go to sit down, it's what we would call chair height.
Right.
The seats
are right there.
So you don't have to, you're not getting up, you're not going down. That's why.
And the sill is narrow, so it's not a far reach.
And the visibility is good all around. The controls are really easy. The reason that I went with the Kia Soul, and certainly for Bart, is that Bart's mom has a Kia Sedona. So I thought maybe she has a relationship with the Kia dealer. She's familiar with Kia. She likes Kias. is.
Right.
And I also thought the Soul also met what Amar was looking for too. About similar fuel economy to the Forester, a little less expensive, but avoid the base model of the Soul because you need to go to the S trim to get a forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking.
Good tip.
Well, that about do it for this episode. As always, keep those questions coming. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. And as always, check the show notes for more information on the vehicles and the topics that we discussed. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.